going through the book of Philippians, St. Paul's letter to the Philippians, for over 20 weeks now, and we've got 3 more weeks to go. And so we're in chapter 4, verses 8 and 9, if you want to turn there with me. Paul starts out with the word finally, which I think he said 3 times. It's kind of like a long goodbye for somebody that you're very, have a lot of endearment towards. Sometimes, unfortunately, it's the sign of a sermon that just keeps going on, where the pastor says finally, and then he goes on for another hour. So if there's no other virtue in my comments, may they be noted for their brevity today, and may I keep this in mind, that Paul meant it on this time. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in practice, put into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. This word whatever is circulating around the Gonzalez family right now. It's actually a 3-sentence summary of my wife when I tell her something. All right, oh, okay, whatever. Which is a very nice way to say I don't care. And I knew she'd say that. But the Greek word whatever, which is 7 times spoken here, is something like hosa. And it doesn't mean exactly whatever, because there's not a perfect translation of a Greek word to an English word. And so in the Greek, it has this idea of whatever or whoever. It's whatever, whoever is one word for them. We don't use that. Our pronouns are more specific, who, what, but not in the Greek. So what's happening here is he's really saying whatever, whoever, because let's face it, what are we thinking about all the time? We're thinking about people. We're thinking about people and things that have happened to us from people. It's not like most of the time we're sitting there thinking about those speakers and how the linear array speakers hit everybody just right. A lot of our thinking is about people. And here again, what Paul is doing is he's encouraging us to think about what we're thinking about. This is something that's been a theme in Philippians. What I want to do is I want us to understand this is that Paul is trying to, if you will, deodorize our stinking thinking. Let me unpack that. If our thoughts had fragrance based on how pleasing they were to God, some of our thoughts, many of our thoughts, hopefully not most of our thoughts, would stink. There's the movie about where people look like what they're like on the inside or something like that. Or in this way, I want you to imagine that there's an odor that comes from bad thoughts. Now, sometimes it's written on people's faces. We've seen that in this country today. We're an apolitical place here, where we only believe in the God of love named Jesus. However, this nation, this world has had so many situations where we see that what this hateful thinking leads to hateful actions. And so we need to deodorize our stinking thinking. And what Paul does is he gives us 7 things that we can think about. Not one thing. People always say if you follow Christ, you have to have such a narrow mind. But he's actually got 7 different things. True, noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable, excellent, praiseworthy. All sorts of things that we can think about and we should think about. So, before I got into Philippians, and I spoke about this again recently, but over and over again we're seeing that the mind is the battleground of the Christian. That's where there's a battle going on. And when you see a cow and they're out in the field, they're eating this heavy grass that if we tried to eat would make us sick, because we're unable to break down these very hard covalent bonds between the fibers of the grass. But the cow has 6 stomachs and they chew for a long time. The cud is what they call it, the grass that they chew. Then it goes to the 6 different stomachs and ultimately gets broken down into meaningful energy. And that's called rumination. And in the same way, a Christian who meditates on God's word and thinks about positive things is like that cow chewing the cud. But we also are capable of chewing on crud all day, which is that we go to this pattern of thinking, this familiar haunt, this familiar place in our mind that we've played back over and over and over and over again, that leads to all sorts of grudges, hateful thinking, depressed thinking. And Paul is saying and giving us an out to that. Now, the very fact that he tells us to think about what we're thinking about and then guides us on what to think about, implicit is that we can change what we think about. He wouldn't ask us to do this if we couldn't do it. There are people who spend their whole lives never, ever once thinking about what they're thinking about, never giving it a second thought that they would control what goes on in their mind. But imagine these thoughts are like fair guests over your house for a banquet. I want you to picture them coming over so you can celebrate this banquet. And all these things are allowed to come in. But then picture all these negative thoughts that are like, as the proverb says, a city without walls, that's susceptible to being broken into, to being invaded and attacked. Let's go through these real quick. There's no way that I can cover these 7 thoughts and do them justice. But a few highlights. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, we start with what's true. It has to be undeniably true, the gospel truth. Not heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend who heard it from REO Speedwagon. None of you guys are old enough to know what I mean. But what I'm getting at here is that start by thinking about that which is true. True. My aunt, who I love, my father's sister, sent me a video that she said National Geographic paid $1 million for this video. So I watched it. It was this dog saving these tiger cubs from a wolf. It seemed a little too canned, a little too staged for me to be out in the wild, so I Googled about it, and it's from the end of a Benji movie. I would just say I didn't have the heart to tell my aunt that it was from a Benji movie, and if you get warm feelings from seeing this video, then watch it. But those of us who are believers in Jesus have to start with that which is true, being very aware of what's presented today in media, in social media, in even videos. Things can be doctored up. Things can be not true. And so be mindful if things are true. Is this a reliable person and a reliable source? When somebody comes and says, do you know what this person did or whatever? What did we say 3 weeks ago? Face to face settles many a case. So start with what's true, not hearsay. Start out with what's noble. True and noble. It's funny is I someday I want to do a whole sermon on noble. Noble means honorable. It's an interesting thing. It's only spoken of with regard to people. When it says whatever is noble, it should just be the better translation, whoever is noble. The Greek word for noble has this idea of gravitas. Okay, gravitas is where we get the word gravity, which means that which is what? Heavy. People who are noble in the Greek mean people who are heavy. It means they have substance to them. You know, you're at the park, or maybe you're in a picnic, and you open up the picnic basket. I don't know, do people even have picnic baskets nowadays? You put out the blanket, maybe the backpack, and it's a little windy, and you've got the napkins, and you need to weigh them down. What are you going to grab? Are you going to grab like 5 plastic spoons and put them on the napkins? How's that going to work out for you? They're going to blow away. Justice, go chase after those napkins. You need a rock. You need a rock for the napkins. So this is it. This is what he's saying. Be focused on people who are rocks, who are noble, who are honorable. People used to actually study this. The Christian church, the Middle Ages, we think they're so backwards, but they valued people who were noble. People who did things the right way, who treated poor people right, who treated strangers right, people who were noble. So what he's really saying here is, think about these people. You know that you can read people like a book? You can read people like a book. You can actually watch them, and it's like reading a book. Better yet, if you don't know anybody noble, read a good book. Read a biography. Then you're reading and a person. Old ancient missionaries, Hudson Taylor, scientists in America, George Washington Carver, great leaders, people who came about at the right time and were blessings to people. St. Augustine, heroes in the Bible. David, Moses. Just study these people. Let me tell you something today. If you go through the channels, like 17 channels are dedicated to what? Focusing on criminals and crime. I've spoken about this some before. We have an unbelievable fascination with studying criminals. So why did they blow themselves up in that market? And when did they become radicalized? And what was their childhood? Who cares? Who cares? We need to study saints. I mean, in the general term of the Bible, people who are trying to follow God. We need to focus on these people. The other people are not worth studying. They just don't have anything to them. There's no substance. There's nothing there. You won't get to the bottom of it. It's like an onion. You just keep peeling and then it's gone. There's no core. There's no substance there. Stop looking into the face of evil and trying to understand it. Look upon the face of God. Study impactful people. Study positive people. Study people who are following Christ. Mass murderers, don't even bother. What is our news full of? Division, strife, anger, hatred. This is what's full of. It's full of it. It's to like here. Noble people. And you say, well, what about protesting? If you feel called to that, be like Martin Luther King. Nonviolent protest. That's all I'm going to say about this. Whatever is right. Whatever is just in the eyes of the Lord. That's what right means. People think they want to be right, meaning the other person's wrong. It has nothing to do with what it means in the Bible. We'll study this someday, but it means to be just in the eyes of the Lord. Just the sight of a godly person does a person good. Just the sight of them. I have a patient twice a year. I have a 91-year-old nun that glows of Christ that sees me for a blockage in her neck. I check her for 5 minutes, and I sit and I listen to her for 20. And she glows. She's lived for Christ. And she tells me about her vocation and what she's doing and encourages me. And sent me a handwritten letter last week to my office, which said, "Be assured of my prayers." I was going to bring it and hold it up and say, she didn't even hear my message. How many in our church have sent a handwritten message? I will keep asking you till 50% of the people raise their hand. You have to go and buy a stamp at the place called the post office, get an envelope, get a pen. I'll give you one. I'll lend you one if you don't have any of those 3 things. I may bring stamps next week. And write a letter to somebody. Not a text, not a WhatsApp, not an EG thing. Those little things, I can't even see what they are. I don't know what they mean, so don't send me them. So, all right, I'm laughing at myself now. I lost my total train of thought here. Whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure. Thank you. Next, pure. Purity. Purity is about this. My daughter, if you got here late, spoke about it. It's a through and through purity. Is a genuineness. A real genuineness with purity. I don't know if you've ever done this. You go to the supermarket, you buy these peaches or nectarines. Of course, they've got the cold air blowing through them. They feel really firm. They look luscious. You bring them home. They're on the counter. The next day, you bite into them. Blah! Those things instantly turn rotten. How about those blackberries? What the heck? The next day you get up, there's like 100 spider webs in them. I didn't see any spiders when I bought these things. I don't know if they're spider webs, but they look like them. That is not purity right there. That is, it looks good on the outside, but deep inside, there's nothing there. It's rotten. Yeah, we can always think about how this person, we thought they were this, but they're not that, and now they're this, and now I know the real thing. Or we can meditate on that which is pure. And this is my favorite one of the list because it's the only time it's used in the Bible. That which is lovely. That which is lovely. One and only time used in the Bible, in the Greek. So he doesn't just say what's true, what's right, what's this, and it kind of seems like some, Stoic could even be that. But that which is lovely. What does the word lovely mean? It means it's adapted to excite love, elicit love. It endears you to them. This is it literally in the Greek, if you forget everything else. Lovely means pro-love. Pro-love. Think about things which are pro-love. Not pro-grudge, pro-hate, pro-this. People, things, situations, God, pro-love. That is what lovely is. That which deserves love. It's worth a hug. It's worth embracing. It's dearly prized. It's precious. It's something you cherish. That's what lovely is. You cherish it. It could be a moment. It could be when somebody does something. It could be when Acacia's singing Rachel's song and I glance over and I see Rachel's face, beaming and joyful to hear her song sung. That's lovely. That is lovely. That is so lovely. And there's loveliness in nature in these things, but you will never see more loveliness than with people. When you see people love their enemies, it is lovely. People who just do things for other people that they don't have to do. It's lovely. Just going out of their way to help somebody. It's lovely. This is like not the high fructose corn syrup sweetness. Okay? This isn't like man-made, artificial, pour it on love like some fake movie thing. This is the nectar of the blood of Jesus, the sweetness of God. Lovely, that I mean by lovely in people. I can't describe it because I'm not poetic enough, but if you go out there and you look for these things, they're there. Even like Elijah, I'm the only one left, and the Lord says, no, there's 7,000. We're trying to do something here with Fusion, have a place where people of all tribes, nations, tongues, every race, every background is one here. And it's different and it's difficult, but we stand by that. That's what God has for us here. That's who we are. That's lovely to Jesus. That's a lovely thought. It's not a thought. It's what heaven will be like. I was just thinking about how, it's you're outside and there's a thunderstorm and lightning's going crazy. And what does it do? It hits the biggest tree. And sometimes you have this huge tree that comes down, knocks out a house. It's on the news. The power lines are out. And what happens? Everyone looks and they're like, wow, look at that huge tree. How big it was. So what am I getting at? Don't let it be that you recognize people who have these qualities only after they die. Like that great cedar that comes down that gave shade to so many. That you just recognize them after they die. Oh, what a great person this was. What a great woman. What a great man. No. While they're alive, think about them. Study them. I'm going to speed this up. That which is admirable means that it deserves respect. Again, also used only once in the Bible. That which is excellent. Excellent here means moral goodness or virtuous. And worthy of praise, interestingly enough, means that which fits God's will. That's what's worthy of praise, that which is done according to God's will. And then I sort of got this exact opposite. I just tried to do, these are just antonyms. So picture this. Whatever things are illusionary and vain, whatever things are mean, whatever things are frivolous, whatever things are contemptible, whatever things are unjust, whatever things are impure, whatever things are ugly, whatever things are branded with the stigma by all men. Think about these things and you'll feel like a jerk, you'll be a jerk, and you'll hate yourself. I'll end with this. Thoughts mold actions. Just remember this. You forget everything else. Remember the lovely thing means pro-love. Thoughts mold actions. So picture this. You have a mold, you put something in it, and it becomes something else with the right circumstances. And we see it, that before there was the Holocaust, there was the thought of one group of people being inferior to another. You see what I'm saying? All evil works start out as thoughts. But here's the other thing. All great works start out as thoughts too. All great works start out as thoughts. This is unjust, so we should do this. Bang, it happens because somebody thought about it. But beyond that, and what I said is, it's not just thinking about things and thinking about nature. It's thinking about people. But really, let's face it, the only one who is true, who is noble, who is right, who is just, who is altogether lovely. You want that sweet nectar? Go to the Rose of Sharon. That would be Jesus. With Jesus, you can think about him all day. And if you think about him all day, it will change you. you will find that he is the sum of all virtues and of all praise. If we're linked to him, we will be full of faith and we will be full of love. Paul ends with this. He says, whatever you've learned, received, heard from me, or seen in me. Quick 4 things. Whatever you have learned, the Greek is whatever you have come to realize by study and training of your mind. That's what learning is. I mean, we're born, there's no awareness that a child, these young children, that they could learn anything is amazing. They realize things. Think about how much time we spend on our bodies, our faces, our backyards, and how little time we spend on our minds. You need to learn, then you need to receive. It says what you have received. Here's the thing about receiving in the Greek. It's taken by personal initiative. You can't receive just because someone gave it to you. People are given things that they don't receive all the time. Think about it. God gives his love, but we don't receive it. God gives us gifts, we don't receive it. It only is received if we take it. We have to take it. You want it, you'll take it. That's what it comes down to, right? That's what it ultimately comes down to. And then what you have heard or seen. Heard means spiritual ear. Seen means spiritual eye. Practice these things. Practice. I could do a whole lesson on practice and hope to someday. All things to do with music, sports, vascular surgery, accounting takes practice. It takes practice. If you think that there's any way you can grow in your Christian life without practice, without exercise, you are illusionary. This you have to practice and do it over and over again, and you will be changed. And what's the reward of all this? The reward is, it says that the God of peace will be with you. Last week, we talked about not being anxious, praying, and we talked about the peace of God being with us and guarding us. We're not talking about the peace of God. Now we're talking about the God of peace. You see that? Now we've got not even just the peace of God, which passes understanding. We've got the God of peace. He will be with us. The Greek word, I've given you a million Greek words, but there's so many new words today. Just the simple word with. It doesn't really mean exactly with many times in the Bible. It means after with. After with. After with. What am I getting at, and what will I end with? Think about what's true. Think about what's noble. Think about what's holy. Think about what's righteous. Think about what's lovely. Think about what's excellent. Think about what's praiseworthy. Study people who do those things. Learn, train, hear, listen, do. After with, God's with you, but after with, he'll really be with you. Are you with me? Amen.